Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a massive, highly charged geopolitical paradox. Get this, US President Donald Trump says a ceasefire is still in place with Iran despite a major clash between Iranian forces and US naval destroyers in the Strait of Hormuz, an explosive event where both sides are pointing the finger entirely at each other. So we've got missiles flying on one hand and claims of an intact truce on the other. It's a lot to untangle, but we're going to break it all down together.
Okay, let's dive into this. Right off the bat, we're hit with an incredibly stark warning. Speaking during an unannounced visit to the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool, President Trump didn't mince words when asked about the status of the truce. He made the extreme stakes of this supposed ceasefire crystal clear, implying that if this truce actually falls apart, you wouldn't even need to ask. The resulting escalation would be unmistakably visible to the entire world.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the ceasefire paradox, move on to the actual clash in the Strait, and then impartially look at the conflicting narratives from both the American and the Iranian accounts. Finally, we'll look at what happens next.
Section 1. The ceasefire paradox, a truce amidst missiles. So, how do you actually reconcile active naval combat with a working ceasefire? Well, it all comes down to framing. President Trump actively minimized the significance of these hostilities by using the word trifle, meaning to treat an event without serious respect. He basically brushed off the incident, noting that Iranian forces attempted to provoke U.S. assets, saying, "They trifled with us today," and then casually adding, "We blew them away." By framing it as just a minor provocation, the administration is attempting to separate this burst of violence from the broader, seemingly intact ceasefire agreement.
Section 2. Clash in the Strait, navigating hostile waters.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer reality on the ground, because we aren't talking about a couple of small patrol boats here. We're talking about 3 world-class American guided missile destroyers, the USS Truxtun, the USS Rafael Peralta, and the USS Mason. According to the United States Central Command, or CENTCOM, these massive vessels were transiting through the highly strategic Strait of Hormuz into the Gulf of Oman when they faced a sudden barrage of missiles, drones, and small boats.
Now, the sequence of events leading up to this clash reveals a really rapid escalation. First, reports started emerging of a U.S. military operation that involved an Iranian oil tanker. Soon after that, a major clash erupted in the Strait of Hormuz, though it's absolutely crucial to note that the precise timing of this fight remains unverified by independent sources. And finally, following the clash, U.S. forces launched targeted retaliatory strikes directly onto Iranian military installations.
Section 3. The American account, self-defense, and retaliation. Let's zoom in on the specific claims made by the United States. The military's perspective is, as you'd expect, highly analytical and sterile. According to CENTCOM, U.S. forces intercepted what they called unprovoked attacks, responding with self-defense strikes that targeted the exact infrastructure responsible for the assault. They effectively wiped out launch sites, command and control locations, and ISR nodes, which stands for Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance. But the most crucial takeaway from the military's perspective is this number right here, 0. Despite navigating one of the most contested waterways on the planet and facing a coordinated barrage of incoming missiles and drones, CENTCOM explicitly stated that 0 U.S. assets were damaged. Not a single scratch. Now, compare that dry military jargon to the Commander-in-Chief's incredibly colorful public messaging. Posting on Truth Social, President Trump praised his naval crews using some really vivid imagery. He claimed that the incoming drones were incinerated while in the air and said they dropped ever so beautifully down to the ocean, very much like a butterfly dropping to its grave. He flat out stated that Iranian units and numerous small boats were completely destroyed, painting the entire engagement as an effortless, overwhelming American victory.
Section 4. The Iranian account, a conflicting narrative.
Shifting gears completely, the narrative coming out of Tehran is a night-and-day difference. According to the IRGC-affiliated Tasnim news agency, the American ships were absolutely not victorious. Instead, Iranian media claims their naval forces successfully targeted the U.S. vessels with missiles and suicide drones, alleging that the American destroyers were actually fleeing towards the Sea of Oman.
Now, what's really interesting about this clash of narratives is that it perfectly captures the Rashomon effect in modern warfare. We essentially have 2 completely contradictory realities sitting side by side. The U.S. claims they intercepted unprovoked attacks with 0 damage, entirely destroying their attackers. Meanwhile, Iran claims their strikes successfully forced a hasty American retreat.
Both sides are claiming absolute military victory, and both are entirely blaming the other.
Section 5. What happens next? The nuclear deal and the blockade. Zooming back out to the macro picture, everything we've discussed today circles back to a single foundational U.S. policy objective. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. While President Trump noted that a formal diplomatic resolution might not ultimately happen, he also teased that high-level discussions hang in the balance, stating that a deal could happen any day. In this context, the precarious ceasefire is seen as a means to that ultimate diplomatic end.
But, that diplomatic push is accompanied by some extraordinarily severe warnings. In a sharp public critique, Trump called Iranian leaders lunatics and delivered this intense threat. He explicitly warned of much harder, more violent retaliation if a deal isn't signed fast. On top of that, he noted that the American destroyers involved in the clash aren't just leaving, they are actively rejoining a U.S. naval blockade, a blockade he ominously refers to as a wall of steel.
Which brings us right back to the core contradiction of this entire event. I want to leave you with a final thought to really ponder. Can a fragile ceasefire truly hold when both sides are claiming they're actively under attack? We've got nuclear deals being negotiated at the exact same time as missiles are being launched, wrapped in entirely contradictory claims of total victory. It's a wild geopolitical puzzle. Thanks for learning with me today. Keep asking great questions, and I'll see you in the next explainer.